Hi everyone, welcome back to another What I Eat in a Day. Thank you so much for all of your lovely comments on these videos. It really makes me enjoy doing them. I've actually been starting off my mornings with a huge jar of iced water. It's just so refreshing and I feel it really gets me going for the day. Plus it's a really great way to cleanse first thing in the morning. And then for breakfast this day I made a pear and apple crumble to use up some of my fruit. I just peeled one pear and then one apple and then I chopped them up into smaller pieces. And then in a pan I just popped in some boiling water. I then added in my fruit and then I sprinkled over a teaspoon of coconut sugar, some cinnamon, and about half a teaspoon to sweeten it all. I made sure that everything was well coated and then I covered it up and left it to cook for around 10 minutes until it had gone slightly mushy. And then once it had gone a little bit mushy, I transferred it into a small baking dish and then I made my crumble topping using the same pan to melt 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. And then I put a mug of oats into a bowl and then I sweetened it again with half a teaspoon of cinnamon. I then poured over the melted coconut oil, sprinkled my crumble topping over my fruit, and then I topped it with another teaspoon of coconut sugar. It kind of makes it go slightly caramelized once it's in the oven. And then I put my oven on 180 degrees Celsius, popped it in there and then left it to cook until it was sort of golden brown on the top, which was around 20 minutes. And then once it was done, I took it out of the oven and transferred it just back to that same bowl where I made the topping. And I tucked into it as it was. I love having crumble for breakfast, it's so warming. Just as a snack, I'd found these quinoa chips in the supermarket and I had to try them because they sounded amazing. They were vegan and these were the sun-dried tomato and roasted garlic flavour. And I had those with some hummus to dip them into. I'll link to my hummus recipe in the description box below. Chips and dip is like one of my favourite snacks. In fact, I think if this was a never-ending bag, you probably wouldn't ever be able to stop me. The ingredients in these were pretty clean as well. You can screen grab this right here to have a closer look as to what goes into them. But they do a ton of other flavours and also some hummus chips as well, so I am definitely going to be going back for more. For lunch I had a burrito bowl. I had loads of things that just needed using up and this is a great way to do that. But first I cooked up some brown rice in a pan and then whilst that was cooking I just shredded up some lettuce. I chopped up 1 tomato and then a large handful of coriander as well, and then I diced up half an avocado. I then made this kind of creamy hot pepper sauce in my food processor using half a cup of sunflower seeds which I'd soaked for a couple of hours beforehand. They probably need a good soaking overnight. The longer they're left to soak, the more creamier they become, and mine weren't probably soaked for long enough. I then added in half a chopped white onion and then 1 clove of crushed garlic. Then I added in 1 roasted red pepper. I just used a jarred one, a teaspoon of chili, half a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of paprika, and seasoned it with salt and pepper. I then blended it up until it was smooth. It needed a good couple of minutes in the food processor and then I also added a little bit of water to help it on its way. I then assembled everything in my bowl. I started with the lettuce at the bottom and then I added in my rice and then my leftover mixed black and kidney beans, some sweet corn, my chopped tomatoes, my avocado, and then I drizzled over my sauce. As I said, it wasn't quite as smooth and creamy as I wanted it to be. Soaked cashew nuts would probably work so much better. And then I just topped it with the fresh coriander and it makes for such a great lunch. I also then had some more fruit which needed using up, so I made a juice of 1 pear, 1 red apple, 1 green apple, a large piece of ginger and half a cucumber. And that was that. And actually the bowl is so much better if you mash everything up together and get it all mixed in. It's really, really filling too, and it kept me going all day. That said, it got to around 4:30 and I just wanted something to snack on. I am like the queen of snacks and snacking is one of my favourite things to do. And I made one of my current favourite snacks, which is cheesy popcorn. And for this I melted a teaspoon of coconut oil in a pan and then I added in a large handful of my kernels and left them to pop away, but I constantly shake them so that they don't burn on the bottom of the pan. Then once the popcorn was done, I transferred it into a large bowl, and then I melted 2 tablespoons of coconut oil in that same pan, and once it was melted I drizzled that over my popcorn, gave it a good shake, and then I added in 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, which I tried to crumble up into like a powder, and then I also seasoned it with a pinch of ground black pepper. Gave it another good shake, and that was that. Popcorn's actually a really great snack. It's a great source of fibre and antioxidants as well, and I always try to buy non-GMO where I can find it. True story, I actually only learnt to make popcorn in a pan around a year ago, but it's so quick and easy, and this cheese flavoured version just tastes amazing. And then for dinner I made one of my favourites, which is so easy, and it's just tomato spaghetti, and I start by making my tomato sauce by adding a tablespoon of olive oil into a pan on a medium heat, and then I squeeze in 3 cloves of garlic and I leave those to sort of soften up. And then I added in a tablespoon of tomato paste. I sort of fry that off, and then I added in a bowl of chopped tomatoes and then some pureed tomatoes. You could just go for the easy option of adding in a tin of chopped tomatoes. And then I seasoned it with salt and pepper. Then I filled another pan with boiling water, added in my spaghetti and a pinch of pink Himalayan salt. I just used brown spaghetti, that's all I can get. I would usually use brown rice spaghetti or spelt. Then once the spaghetti was done, at the last minute I added in some chopped sun-dried tomatoes to my sauce and also tore up some fresh basil leaves. And then I added the sauce to the big pan whilst the spaghetti was draining. Apparently you're meant to add the pasta to the sauce and not the sauce to the pasta. I don't really know if it makes a difference, but I've got into a habit of doing it now. Added back in my spaghetti, gave it a good mix around, and then I served it up in our bowls. I then topped it with some more leftover sun-dried tomatoes and some chopped green olives. You could use black too. And then I finished with these humongous basil leaves that kind of look like spinach. I've never seen basil leaves this big before. There's usually some left over in the pan, but I always go back for a second bowl because it's just so good and I love spaghetti. And I've obviously got to share some basil with the bun because it's his favourite and he gets seriously jealous when we're eating it and he's not. Then for something afterwards, I'd actually thrown these together during the day. I just wanted to use up some more of my bananas, and I'm going to call them frozen chocolate cups. I first started by blitzing up a mug of almonds with half a mug of oats and 1 tablespoon of coconut oil in my food processor, and then laid out my funky coloured cupcake cases and pressed the mix into each case using the back of the spoon and then my fingers. It made 12 altogether, and then for the topping I blended up 2 large bananas, 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, 3 tablespoons of cacao powder, a teaspoon of maca powder, a teaspoon of coconut sugar, and then a pinch of pink Himalayan salt. I blended that up until it was smooth, and then I filled each case with it. By this point I'd moved my cups onto my freezer shelf, which I'd lined with some baking paper just so they all sat evenly, and then I put them in the freezer for the rest of the day. They probably had a good 9 hours in there altogether, and so come the evening I just remove them from the freezer and pop them out of their little cases onto a plate. I'd suggest transferring the rest into an airtight container before putting them back. If they're left open like this, they tend to just taste like freezer, if you know what I mean. They actually turned out really good. They kind of go a little bit mousse-like, and I would say to eat them frozen or leave them maybe for 10 minutes to thaw, but if they're left for too long they do completely melt. As always, I had a mug of peppermint tea to go with those before I headed off to bed. And that was another day on my plate. I really hope you enjoyed it. I will write up all the recipes in the description box below, and I will be back with another one of these next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!